Hey, welcome back to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. My name's Larry. Well, this is part 2 of the restoration of this Singer sewing machine from 1927. In yesterday's video we broke it all apart, and in today's video we're going to start to work on some of the repairs that need to be done. This video is going to focus on repairs that are going to precede the major re-veneering issues. The reason for that is the veneer, because there's so much of it missing, I had to order some, and that's on its way from a mill out in Ohio. So maybe a little while before I get my hands on that. But in the meantime, we can take care of these other repairs. You can see I've got this laid out in front of me, and what's unusual about this is that someone has removed all of the walnut veneer from the work surface except for where they couldn't get the piece off that covers this, because it's basically the last piece that comes off in disassembly. So we know for a fact that the walnut veneer has been removed from this. The piece that they did not remove is still veneered, and then the flip-up portion of the lid is still veneered. What's a little bit tricky, if you don't know how these things are constructed, is this lid has had the veneer removed and then it's been stained and probably shellacked, so it looks like it's original, but it's not. I mean, it's original, it's the lid, but it's missing the entire sheet of veneer that would go over it. So whenever you're preparing to veneer a substrate, you have to make sure that substrate is clean, it's straight, it's flat, and it's secure. And by looking at some of the pieces here, you can see we have splits and loose joints. All of this has to be taken care of, and that's going to be the focus of this video. In addition, we have this drawer case that has some construction issues, and we talked about those yesterday. You can see, well, I'll bring you in and show you, but you've got loose joints here, loose joints here, and some cracks and splits that have to be re-glued. So I will bring you in and we'll get to work. Stay with us. And kind of falling into the category of where do you start first, this is the underside of the flip lid, and I hope you can see how badly scratched this is. I really don't understand how this could have occurred, other than it maybe was left open and there was a heavy metal thing that was sit on here and dragged across it. This lid has veneer bubbles. There's one here, one here. There's a loose bit of veneer here, a loose veneer here, and another veneer bubble here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this down right now to make sure that I can get all these scratches out. If I can't, I'm just going to re-veneer this with the other side of this lid. I'd like to keep as much original veneer as I can during a restoration, and I don't like to take the lazy way out, and that is just to tear it off and re-veneer it. But at the same time, when we do all this work to get all this veneer glued back down, it looks terrible, well then we didn't do the right thing. So I'm going to take this outside, we're going to sand this off, and take a look and see just how well we can get this piece of veneer to look before we start to tackle these loose veneer bubbles. So I'll bring you outside and we'll get sanding. And I hope you can see that with sanding we are getting these scratches out. We have one little scrape right there, but we can fill that. So I'm going to keep sanding and see if we can save this piece, and I'll bring you back when I'm done, but I think it's going to come out. Okay, we sanded for 15 or 20 minutes and I got probably 90–95% of those scratches out. We have a little bit of a scratch here that we'll be able to fill during the refinishing process, and we do have some loose veneer. Particularly, we have a pretty good veneer bubble right here. That's why I didn't continue to sand here, because I didn't want to blow through the high spot. We've got to get that down. Next job is going to be to deal with this big veneer bubble here. And I guess you can see this. We have loose veneer right here that needs to be taken care of. So here we go. Okay, we've got this veneer bubble here that we're going to be dealing with. Some people like to use an iron to try to activate the glue back underneath it and flatten it out. I honestly haven't had very much success with that, but what I am going to do is put a damp rag here and a hot iron, and we're going to steam it. And I'm not expecting it to lie flat and stay down. I'm just trying to loosen up the veneer a little bit, blast some steam in there, get the veneer a little bit flexible. And the next thing I'm going to do is make an incision along the veneer bubble. Through the veneer. There we go. And lift that veneer right up. Now the next job is to force glue under that veneer bubble. And now on the other side, this is the point in the show where I normally come on the other side and work on it, but the camera's right there, so. There we go. Now sometimes if the veneer is, it's actually almost too long when you put it back together, you may have to you know, cut a little bit of it off. Sometimes you can cut some off kind of like a football shape and then patch it, but we're going to try to just get this glued back down and see how we do. And we're working that glue absolutely as far into that bubble as we can. And you can see we're going to be able to get that nice and flat now. Take that as a win for the home team. That's going to go good. Okay, next step, wax paper. If you forget this step, you're going to wind up gluing your glue block to your workpiece. Nice flat piece of maple I'm going to use as a glue block. And a couple of clamps. I'm not worried about protecting the other side of this lid because, as you remember, it's substrate. We're going to be veneering over it. It's going to get sanded and prepared in later steps. Okay, that's how we handle the veneer bubble. I'm going to work on gluing down the corners that are missing next. And this is the hinge corner. We've got loose veneer here. And what we'll do is try to clean out the old glue the best we can. Any dirt that's in there. And the same thing, get the glue in there as far in as we can, best coverage that we can. On all the way back to where it was loose. And you like to see good glue squeeze out when you push that down. And we don't need a call on this repair. We'll just use the clamp to hold this flat. And there we go. There's two different veneer repairs on the underside of this lid. This needs to sit for 6-8 hours before we move on and start doing additional repairs on this. I'm going to go through and check, see if there's any more loose veneer on this side. If there is, I'll take care of it the exact same way. If not, we'll move on to the next piece. So stay with us. So far, so good. Geez, I almost forgot to show you guys what I'm doing with these little scratches that are left. This is Timbermade. It's a water-based wood filler. It's very fine. You can actually use it as a grain fill when you're doing refinishing. So all I did was take a little bit of this Timbermade, put it on my finger, and smear it across any place that I thought might have a little bit of a depression in it. And then I took a sharp razor blade and just run the razor blade across here. It helps level it out. And then when it dries, sand off any of the excess and it'll be full. Now this stuff is vulnerable to decay until it gets sealed in. So be real careful with it. You don't want to go washing this piece with this dried fill in here. You want to make sure that it's the piece is sealed before you start to get rough with this. But when this dries, we'll light sand this, and these little scratches that remain will be taken care of. So let's move on to the next piece, because this one's pretty well clamped up. And right now you're looking down on the edge of the flip-up lid, and you can see we have monstrous separation of the veneer all the way down the depth of that knife, which takes it down that far. And it's not only to the veneer, which is this layer here, but the first layer of substrate. So what we've got to do is get glue, clean out the best we can each of the entire layers, force glue down in there all the way down to the bottom, and then clamp this up with a proper caul like that. Pull it tight and let it dry. So this is a little bit bigger repair, so let me get to it. We'll start first by cleaning out the repair area the best we can, trying to get any dirt or loose glue or anything out of there. Boy, that veneer failure is way down. I'm going to use some compressed air to try to blow out what's in there. I've had some comments, people saying don't use compressed air, it only blows it in deeper. I disagree. Okay, I think we've got this pretty well prepared, so let's get started. First step is to get glue down in here. Don't be shy. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to paint both sides of the surfaces that we're gluing back together with glue. Make sure that they have, both sides have complete coverage. And I'm pretty happy that we've got it now. And as I'm applying these clamps, I'm looking for complete glue squeeze out all along the joint that we're repairing. What's Norm Abrams say? Something about you can never have enough clamps? Smart man. And that's what we look like from up top. Okay, let's keep going. As you remember from part 1, this piece here that mounts the hinges and serves as the frame for the opening was not removed when this piece was last refinished. And as a result, when whoever took off all this veneer off this top piece, this work surface, the old veneer remains. That has to come up because we're going to re-veneer this entire piece with new walnut veneer. So the best way to get this up, I've found, is to heat it up with a heat gun, get a scraper underneath there, and try to lift it up. We're going to try to save as much of this walnut veneer as we can, so if we have little chips we have to repair on this machine, we can use it. And what you'll see is as soon as the glue reaches a certain temperature, it's just going to let go. And I heat both the wood and the knife with the hot air gun. And just like anything else, patience is a virtue. Take your time. And you can see it's starting to pop up. Okay, I'll bring you back when I get it off. There we go. And for those of you that are curious, that's the thickness of the original veneer. And this is the corner of the main work table, and you can see we've got this piece of trim. It's loose, and much of the damaged veneer on the back side attaches to it. So there's no sense in even attempting to do anything with this veneer until we get this glued back in. So I'll glue this in the same way I did the other ones. I'll just force glue in there. We'll get it lined up and clamp it. And on the other corner of the same piece, we have some loose veneer and a loose trim piece. So I'll glue both of those up and clamp them up off camera because it's the exact same thing that I just did. And then we'll set this aside to set up. And as is often the case when you start working on veneer on an old piece, what was one loose corner on one side and a loose corner on the other became that as we looked that up. Okay, I think that's about it that we're going to be able to accomplish on the base pieces. We have that broken drawer frame we got to tackle, so that'll be next. And you're looking down at the broken, well not broken, the separated pieces of this drawer frame. You can see right there was a nail there, that's broken off. But the other side, that nail is still there, and you can see the looseness on that side of the joint. I want to get that nail out of there if I can. The other side is a little bit worse. This joint exploded and it's missing pieces of wood. And if you see from right here, and focusing right there, you can see this entire upper portion. It would actually be the lower portion once the thing's installed of this tongue and groove joint is missing. So what I think I want to do here is I'll re-glue this and then later we'll fill this in with epoxy. This side, because this is so loose, we need to get that nail out of there and we'll re-glue this. So let's get set up and see if we can pull this nail out of here. Okay, here's the nail we'll remove, and I can't get you any closer because I've got to get in here to be able to work. I had a viewer who made a suggestion about when taking out these nails that are flush, is to take what's called a roll pin. It's basically just a piece of metal that's used as a pin to fasten two pieces of metal together, and to sharpen it, which I have done, and chuck it in a drill and then put it over top of the nail, and carefully you'll be able to drill out around the nail, which this is doing. You don't want to take too much, that's for sure, but you want just enough that you can get a grip of it. Now, these pliers that I'm using were suggested by another viewer for just this purpose, and this is the third or fourth time I've used them. And you can see I got the nail up, but I left part of the shaft broke off, so let me get another grip on this and try to get this up. I'm going to have to grab another tool. When you're using diagonal pliers, you got to be real careful you don't squeeze so hard to cut the nail off. And this is tough because I can't, there it comes. I really can't crank down on this. There it is. Well, I just dropped it, but that was the nail. We were able to get it off. And as far as damage, that's all we've got to fill, is that little bit right there. Okay, let's get this glued up. And as I'm working on this joint, getting ready to fit it, what I've noted is that it's extremely loose. The tongues are narrow compared to the grooves, and we're not going to get a good glue joint here because of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this together with epoxy, 5-minute epoxy, that's thickened up with a thickener that I have, which will allow it to act like basically like a crack filler and fill in any voids and get this joint nice and tight, because we don't want this popping off ever again. So give me a second, I'll mix up some epoxy and we'll get this glued up. Well, I guess I might just as well show you how I mix this stuff up. I've got a 2-part epoxy here. This is by DevCom. I just buy this at Home Depot. It's no big deal, really. It's just a 2-part epoxy. It cures in about 5 minutes. And what you do is put equal parts of body and hardener in there, and I just pretty much eyeball it. You want to be pretty good at eyeballing it because you want it to set up when you've got it all mixed up. And set those aside. And then when I'm working on, wood that's stained, I don't want the fill to be a light color. So I'm going to put a little bit of dark pigmented colors in here. This is the same stuff I use for other things. It's Mohawk's Blend All Powder Stain. This is dark Van Dyke Brown. And then I use these metals or wooden sticks that we get at the grocery store for making shish kebabs with, and I just cut them in the bandsaw when I get them, and they're really good for mixing up epoxy. And then to thicken it, I use this stuff here. This is West Systems 404 high density adhesive filler. It's basically just a white powder. I don't know what's in it, silica or something, I don't know. But I dump a little bit of it in there and then stir it up. It's a very fine powder, so be careful when you use it. It has a tendency to blow all over the place like that. Hopefully you're in frame. Oh, yeah. Then I mix this up, and you can see this is starting to get thick, and it will fill in any spaces in that joint and harden and allow that joint to stay together. So that's how we mix it up. Let me get it on. All right, to apply it, I'm just using an acid brush, just a disposable brush that I get on Amazon. And if you remember, the solvent for epoxy before it hardens is acetone. So if you make a mess with it, just grab your acetone and wipe it off. This is a little bit heavier clamp than I'd like to use, but I need to throw. And we want to get this lined right up at the edge. This should set up in about 5 or 10 minutes. That's fixed. Let's look at the back. You can see we've got 2 screws here. They don't match anything else that's on here. The reason being is this is supposed to be held in with brads. Somebody drove screws through there and split this rail all the way from here to here. So we're going to have to get these screws out and take this apart and see what we can do to put this all back together. Remember, this is the side that we had the missing wood on as well. So let me grab some tools and we'll see if we can get these screws out. Now, because of the fragile nature of this joint, I'm supporting it from underneath with my hand. I don't want to push down on this and blow it out. And these screws are stripped in here anyways. I want to examine this joint for just a minute off camera to see if I can effect a proper repair without having to take off this entire rail. What I'll have to do is pry out 4 brads, and I run the risk of splitting the wood, which I'd rather avoid if I could. So give me just a minute to figure out how to best fix this. Alright, I was able to get this joint all the way apart, and you can see we have, this is loose from where the person had screwed it, and it had been split lengthwise. It's also been blown apart down here, and we have a large loss of wood from here to here. So I think what I'm going to do is work some glue into this split, work some glue into this split, and see if I can get that all clamped up. And if I can and it's tight, then I'll try to clamp or glue and clamp the last part of the joint, and then we'll effect a repair of the missing wood using epoxy putty. So that's how I'm going to do it. Stand by, we'll see if we can pull it off. And I'm sorry, I guess I shut you off a little bit early, but I basically just took compressed air and blew out those screw holes so we didn't fill those with glue. So we'll be able to get that back in there. But that's pull tight. Let's get the inside one taken care of next. And that's the next split we're going to be taking care of, is this one right here. Again, I'll just get glue in there, clean it out, get some glue in there, put a clamp across it, and at the same time I clamp it, I'm going to put some glue here and clamp right across this. So we're not going to have to worry about screws or brads holding this in. It'll be glued to the side. So then we can put some decorative brads back in those holes after we fill them. So this and this are next. I'm going to do it off camera because there is just no way I can give you a shot. So I'll bring you right back. Well, Rube Goldberg, eat your heart out. We've got this all pulled back together. You're looking at it from the underneath. Let me pull back so you can see what you're looking at. You're looking at it from the underneath. You can see we've got 3 C-clamps taking care of the splits laterally across that rail, and we have a long bar clamp that's putting pressure on the joint. It's putting on the pressure on the joint right there. This is where we're missing the wood. We'll roll this over. I forgot to mention it that this split right here was actually the rabbited part that the drawer slides on. So that was particularly bad. But we've got that back where it belongs. So I think for one day we've done an awful lot of work. I think we're just going to let stuff dry overnight. Tomorrow we'll take the clamps off, see how we did. So there you go. I think we got the majority of the repairs done to this piece. We'll unclamp it tomorrow. We'll clean up the glue. We'll probably find other things that need a little touch up. But today was a good day. We got a lot done. So listen, from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards, thanks for watching, take good care. We'll see you next video, which will be part 3 of the continuing restoration of this Singer sewing machine from 1927. We've got lots more work to do. Stick with us. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next video. Take care. Bye.